So previously we really briefly talk about the sole proprietorship. Let's quickly go through this, right? And we can go through this by comparison. Okay, so the sole proprietorship is is the only benefit of sole proprietorship is really easy, right? But to me, it's all the downside because it's unlimited owner's liability as well as the flow through to individual taxation. Especially if your own income is already at a very high bracket of taxation. And so proprietorship will go directly to you and will push you even higher to that tax bracket, which you don't want, right? And there is as I said, it's a flexibility issue, right? So if you choose that, you got a very limited flexibility. Even professionals can't do much about that, right? Unless you change the business entity. So here comes some, better ways of doing things. Arguably, but I prefer not to ranking things. Okay, for you're just testing your projects at very early stage. You don't want to hire some a tax preparer, tax professional, tax pro to help you do that. It's totally okay. Just starting with sole proprietorship, right? Some low risk, right, and entrepreneurship. You can do that, right? But I think there are better options. For example, Single Member LLC. Single Member LLC is better from the owner's liability point of view. Because remember, it's LLC. The name already suggests things. Is come from limited liabilities companies, right? So that means that you are doing business as a limited liability company. You're doing business as a company. Okay? And as the name already suggests, is limited liability. So that means, is you are liable for certain, creditors' claim, right? But owing to a certain level, okay? And after that, they can't go after you, which is the owner, okay? Even though you just one person, you own this, you are the only member of this LLC. Basically, just if you think about it, come on. Who are we, try to fool? You are the only person of that LLC, okay? I'm going to give you a straight language of that. Come on, it's just, you are the only member of that LLC. You are the owner of that LLC. You control that company, okay? So, you know what? You can sort of get what's being earned on the company, but you can't mix things up. There are lots of fine line that you can't cross here, but you got more flexibility of that company, right? You don't need to vote. You don't need to go through a certain procedure in order to do something, right? Because you are the single member, right? You can from the strategic point of view, right? You can say, well, I want to do this, right, project, right? I can do that. I want to do this project and do that. Right, but you have to be extremely careful about how to reimburse your personal expense, something like that. That's the fine line that sometimes you can't cross. If you cross that, they say that's called commingled funds, which will appear in the veil, which we can't really discuss that because this is kind of a risky area, right? If you try to use your company's money on your personal expense, but we will talk about that in detail. But just to rest sure, right? So if you do everything by the book, and you create a single member LLC, right? And from the liability point of view, that's limited liability, okay? They can't go after your own assets, okay? But as I said, there are also two facets of things. The second way is the taxation way, right? From the taxation, as I said, it's a disregard entity. That means that, is disregard. That means that's right. Of course, you can elect, you can choose. We will talk about that in detail, right? But I want to quickly mention that if you don't do that, if you just do that, right, plain vanilla, right, default, right, that means it's default flow through the member, and you are the single member, that flow to you. So that means the taxation will flow default to you, and of course you can you can do the election and you can be treated as a corporation which is the tax point of view. You can like tax treat it as a corporation, but we will talk about that in detail. But right now, I just want to say, well, from taxation point of view, it's default as disregard. So you know what? It's still flow to you, right? So you are responsible. You are the single member. You are the member, right? You are the single member. You're the owner. You're the member. You personally, you do the taxation. Okay, that's single member LLC.